Hi everyone, welcome to the studio. I'm Lindy Whitten. If you haven't been to one of my videos before, welcome. If you enjoy it, why not hit the subscribe button and then you'll be able to get notified when I have new videos coming out. Okay, so last time I talked a little bit about how to plan to do a loose painting, and I said I would continue on painting this one, and that's what I'm going to do. So I've got myself here a piece of La Carte paper. I've chosen brown. I know in the previous video I said I was going to choose a brighter colour, but I've decided to go with the brown. I've got some offcuts here just to play with as I go. That's the photo. I will try and put that up on my website, but it won't be straight away. It might take me a week or so to get on it. It's prime exhibition time at the moment for me, so I've got lots of stuff going on. And over here you'll see an acrylic painting I'm working on, which is part of it is from the same reference here, but it continues through there. So I've got that up because I don't want to refer too much to the photo now. I want to refer to what I remember from when I was there, the feeling that I had, and this acrylic I've done, which is sort of further refined it down and loosened it up. So that's what I'll be going for, but I've put this up for you so that you can see it. Here I'll probably do a little play before I start on here. You can see these two strips of paper. I'm just going to put some of the colours out I've chosen to see how they work on this brown. I've got a few different yellows there, some pinky colours, and then I've got a swathe of these nice warm colours and some dark as well. And then over in the bluer section, I've got some quite light blues and some warm. These are a mix of pastels. Some are harder, some are softer. I just wanted a nice range of them. I think it's very bright, which I probably won't use, but I might use it for this little bits in that area, but it will only be a limited amount I'll be using that. And some dark. Got a few dark going into the brown sort of colours, warmer ones, and then some silver, blue ones as well. So that's my palette to start with, and I'll probably pick up a few extra colours for in these bright bits. We'll see how that goes. I will start as I usually do, working from the back to the front, so the sky forward, and I'm going to start with those blues, and I'm actually going to grab myself a pale, even paler blue. I'll see how pale that is, almost white. Put that to the side and see if I can find what I'm happy with. Yeah, I think I'll take that one. It's quite soft. So I'm going to lay in first the line of where the sky will go. And as I've said many times before, I'm not really interested in getting it accurate rendition of those hills. I'm more interested in getting the lively painting that reflects the mood. So I'm just putting in a few different blues here. That's very close to there, so I might step it up a bit with a new blue that I'm pulling out of the box. A little touch of that up in the top, but I'm going to tone it down a bit. This one. You see, I'm just moving my hand, moving it around. I'd like to, that's a little bit green there, which is okay with an aqua kind of colour. So I'm going to actually go in with a creamy yellow colour down the base there. I'll just stop. And keep that nice and nice. I'm not even really drawing in and blocking up here. I'm just putting in the colours in those sections. I'm going to go through and block in the dark down here though, because that's quite important. And this paper is helping me already with the dark, but I want to lay in dark, going through this section of water. And I'm going to lay in some of the darks in this area. So, and they kind of make a little pathway back there, which I liked before. So down there, it's all going to be dark over here. Lay in a little pathway going through here. And then there's a little strip along there, which is the base of that. I want to make sure I've left enough for the water. So this area is quite dark here with the shadows, which is what I like. If you remember, I like the shadows in this. So I'm just trying to get the shadowy area locked in. And then there's a lot of shadow up in this area. So I'm just going to pop that in now. Normally, you would put darks before lights, but I often find with the sky, I don't like putting sky holes in. So what I'll do is I'll start with the sky behind it, and then I'll just pop in the tree shapes in a darker than I'm going to end up with way. And that sort of counteracts the fact that I'm picking up the whites underneath it. So that's giving me an idea of those shapes. What I'm going to do now is go and pop in the background hill there. I'm just going to use a mauvey colour for that because I want it to be lighter than the foreground. Now that's the reed bed, so I'm going to make the hills go sort of up like this. And they'll pop in behind here. And that's going to be a mixture of the mauve and pale blue. So I wanted to knock them back a bit there. They're quite dark here, but I don't want them to be quite that dark in painting. You can choose how dark you want things to be. If you want to push things back a bit, you can make them a little bit lighter. And that's what I'm trying to do here. But I'm going to add a bit more colour into that background. So I want it to be a little bit more colourful than... There's a pretty bright colour that I'm putting in there to represent the greyed off paddocks over there. But I will go back and I'll actually knock it back a little bit with a peachy that's not quite so yellow. And I will go into the hills, which I've made that warm blue and, the blue and mauve is cooler than here, but it's warmer than this bit of green I'm putting in. It's a little bit of green to run into the peach there. And I'm going to give the edge there, edge it up there a little bit, and then run a little bit of that back up into the hills. So the top of the hills will now need to be darkened up a little bit because they're a wee bit too light. I'm just trying again to get a bit of colour and variation into there. So I've gone quite a cool blue there. So I'm going to head in with a little bit. The shadows are going, the sun's going from that direction. So that's the direction of the sun. So I'm actually going to put a few shadowed areas in there. And I will need to go back and do a bit more work on the sky. This is just setting the theme, so to speak. Now I'm going to put in quite a bright blue back there, that water in the distance. It's going to start off with that brighter blue, and I will knock it back a bit and make it not quite so bright. The carp paper is just lovely. It really grabs the pastel. So taking a bit of that through there and just speeding up the water in here. It's a bit too green, but I'm going to go in with lighter aqua colour and some of the blue from the sky, purpley blue, and just mix those colours up slightly. So that's the shine on the water. We're getting things, you can see that I've got a lot of dust on there. I'll just knock it down a bit. Okay, so now I'm going to start working on the reed bed here, and that just is a matter of putting in some lights and some darks. So I'm putting in a section of lights along here and then making a pattern of light and moving my hand. You can see that I'm moving my hand around as I go, and I'll add some more colour in there. I'm just starting out with the suggestion of some light there. So you can see I've got lights going through there, lights coming through here, and then I will have a bit more light coming in this section down here. A little bit of light there, and some more light coming out of here. So that will have some more colours, but I'm just setting up the pattern now of light and dark. I'll set in the water there. I wanted some of that very light, bright blue, and it gets deeper and darker as I come down here, and I put that dark in. So what I'm going to do is take that brighter blue and mix it with the darker blue. Come in through here. And as it goes in through in behind some of these plants, it comes up a little bit darker. I'm going to be putting in some more of the very dark there, but I want to mix it up a bit, so I will also be adding some green, a bit of this green in the under the water. I'm adding that in now, and there'll be a little bit of yellow going in there too. So I'm just looking at which yellow I want to put in. Maybe some of this, it's not quite like that. I do want it to be a paler yellow, so I'll go in with this one, almost a. I just want it to do some light underneath the water. I'm putting that in there so that it sets my values. And there's a little bit here, but it's not quite as light. I'll put a little bit in, and then I will knock it back a bit with this colour. And then down here, there's a really nice patch that I'm using to lead us into the painting. I'm putting some of this brighter yellow, some of this lighter yellow, and some of this more sienna kind of colour. And it will get blurred over a bit by the water and some shadows. This is quite dark coming up to it, so I'm going to introduce some really dark into the edge there, and there will be some shadows coming from this eventually, but right now I'm just adding a little bit of extra colour, a different dark into the dark passage. And you can see over here how I've added in the very bright ones out there, and they will be the lighter. They're the lightest values. I'm just popping a little bit of that in there now to remind me. I like to work the whole thing as I'm going. As I get over here, it won't be quite so bright, but in here it's going to have a nice bright feel to it. And as I go out to the edges, I don't want it to be quite so bright either. So I don't want the light colour pulling me out of the painting. So that gives me a nice sense of light going across here. As I move this way, I'm going to actually take this darker sort of yellow, add a little bit of that in to my grasses, and a little bit over here too. And this colour will come down into here, and it will feature a bit in here as well, just to tie things together. So you can see how quickly I'm getting a build-up and a sense of the lights and the shadows and the variations in value here. I want to build up a little bit of that reed bed out there now, so I'm going to pop it in with this colour. And I'm always careful to use a motion that reflects how the vegetation is growing. So here I'm pulling down, the reeds grow up and down, so I'm pulling down like that to suggest them. I will be popping on a few little touches of light out there. And letting some of that, the dark of the paper, do the work for some the dark edges of it. I would, even though in the photo there's no reflections, over in here you can see that I've pulled some reflections down, and I like that. So I'm actually going to take this darker one, edge up that a little bit more with some dark, and then I'm going to just pull them down with my finger to create some reflections. If it doesn't pull down enough, I'll just add a little bit more in the water and pull it there. I just want to pull down because that's how reflections go, down. So now I've got a little bit of reflection going on there. I can go back in and add in a little bit more of that little sharp edge along the dark edge where the reeds are meeting the water. I've really lost those hills back there, so I do need to work on that. But before I do anything, I need to clean these dirty hands. So just give them a little wipe off. And I'm going to take a little bit of this light yellow, buttery yellow that I've used there, and just go around the hills there. And I don't really want it to be quite that yellow, so now I'm just running a bit of this lighter colour through it. But I did want to use it in there and then mix it with the lighter colour so that I could carry some of that light up into there. And now I'm going to put in a tiny bit of the aqua sort of green blue. Yeah. And I'm going to pop in, sort of blend them together with this other blue that I'm using. And lay it on quite thick because I do want to cover most of that brown in the sky. Okay. that sky still needs some more work, but what I'm going to do is take the green, and I might even soften it off with a bit of pink. It does make it a little bit more lively in the sky there. Take a little bit of that pinky colour and add that in as well. And looking for the very palest sort of yellowy colour I have, which involves cleaning up some of these. Let's see, that one's better. So now my heels are standing out a little bit more. I'll go in and work them a little bit. Just change the shape a little bit because I preferred it that way. Okay, so I've got quite a lot of colour in the hills and in the sky, and now I'm going to go back and work through this again. Because I've used a lot of light up there, you can see that the pastel dust is on here. I can just lean it forward and give it a bit of a tap, and then that back there. Okay, what now, you ask? Well, I'm going to keep working on these areas now. I don't want to overwork them, and in fact, I might do this section back here. It has got some buildings in there, but I'm just not going to bother with them. They're not what interests me, so they can all stay out. What I'm going to do is build up a little bit of sense of shrubbery there, with a few different greens. Actually, I'm pulling out a few greens here, and I don't want too much really bright green, but I want to start off with a little bit of it, and then I'll go into the more muted kind of, maybe not muted, not the right word, but colours that are more in sync with this palette. So I'll go into this brown green now, and just knock those all back a bit because they're too light for what I want here. All this is in the shadow, so we don't want that too. And then I've got these gum trees coming up there, eucalyptus. So I'm just going to put in a few shapes to suggest that, using this dark because the sunlight's coming from that way, remember? So this will all be in shadow, this section. And it's just rough shapes. The thing to do is to work out how big a shape you want. And if you're trying to use this, when you want to make a mark that's like that size, then you have problems. So look for a piece of pastel. That was really a bit too big for what I wanted. However, it has done the job. So now I've got this deeper colour in here. I'm going to add a little bit more of it into there, and I'm going to add some deeper purpley colours into there, just to give it sort of, and I'll be putting it down there once I use it because I want to give it a little bit of depth there. This is a better one. Don't want it to be too magentry, which that one was. So just a bit of purples in the shadows there. Add a little bit of it into the trees, just so we've got a little bit of variation. It's not all the same. And because I've used that here, I'm going to pull a little bit of that down into these darker areas here, the shadowed areas. So this is a warmer brown, a warmer dark, so it'll just make those areas a little bit richer and give you some contrast between the cool blues and the warmer. Adding them into these shadows as well. It's just the shadows from the trees falling across the landscape. So I'm keeping that pattern of lights and darks going on. I've got some trees in. I've got a bit of a glow going on in the sky, so we can tell that it's light. The hills maybe need a little bit more shadow in them. So let's put that in now. And I can just touch that up if I want to keep that nice and soft in the background. Just adding a little bit of variation in the hill. Okay, so this is all in shadow, but I don't want it to be totally shadow. I do want some nice rich colours in there. I'm actually going to I found an orange as well for my palette. And I'll start popping in a few of these richer colours. There are patches of samphire in here, which is what I'm trying to suggest, the lovely reds you get on the samphire, tips of samphire. So I'm suggesting a little bit of that by going through here with this red. And then over in this area, I'd like some more. And I'm looking for a pattern here, so up to here. They sort of grow quite vertically. So putting something like that, a little patch back here, and maybe a tiny patch up here, just so it helps to pull you through the painting there. I'll add in some warm russety tones as well. Especially, I don't want it quite so bright as you come out towards the edge, even though the light is there. And it's got some pale sort of greeny colour, so I'm looking for some of this one and a bit lighter. So I'm going to start off with the darker, deeper version of it and just pull it through, pulling it down through the reds that I've got there, just to let them mingle a bit. Just have a little show of it through there. There's even lighter colours there, so I'm going in and pulling out this coral kind of colour and adding a few little bits of that with the light's really hitting it. The edges of some of those sapphires. A couple of bits over here. This is a little bit too patchy, so let's make it a little bit more vertical. That again is going to help to lead it through, maybe right, so that's leading out there. Got a very pale sort of green bit going in because it's much cooler, just to add a little bit of variation again, a few cooler bits of green. Right, let's get back to this then and see what we're going to do here. I want to add in some more darks at the bases of this, so we'll just enrich all that with some sort of scratched in kind of marker. think of it sometimes like making yeasted breads, sweet breads. You have to enrich them with some egg and some butter, milk, and this is what we're doing here. We're just enriching some of the areas by adding in some richer colours, and some of these are other areas as well. Just because put it in one area, add it in elsewhere too. And by running it up and through the other colours like this, it helps to visually mix them and physically mix them. Add a little bit in the base of this one too. And as I'm adding it in, I'm going to pull it down into the water as well, because then it'll create some of those reflected areas we want that'll give variation to the water. This is actually underwater, so now I need to settle that down a bit. And what I'm going to do is I've got some of this really green, which I'm going to run across my water to tie it all together. So I'm knocking back that bright patch so it looks like it's underwater by running, laving, gently dragging that across, bringing in some of that over the top of some of those reflections. Again, in this section as well. You can see how it just gives you a sense of the water surface by dragging it across. This is actually not underwater, so I'm not going to drag water just there. I am going to drag it through here. And I want to set up quite a few more of those, this kind of stuff here. I don't like how it was flat through there. So there's going to be a little bit more coming through. Starting to have the feel that I want. I'd like this to meander a bit more. So I think what I'm going to do is pull this little patch here out a bit further into the water. Give it a little touch of that light, and I'll add that warmer yellow down here as well. A little bit into this section, back through here. Pull it out like so. Give it a little bit of reflection. And don't forget that I need to put back in that light in the water. That was out there because I've lost that now, so that's just going in. Glaze it again. And let some of the suggestions things underneath the water, rocks or whatever, move into that area. That could be knocked back a little bit more. And this should be, again, quite light. I'll blur it off slightly with my finger there. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I don't. I got a little bit fussy with those in the other sample ones I did. I don't want to get too fussy, but I do want a few hints of this red in a believable way. And I'm going to use a much deeper, darker, reddy tone for some of the areas out there. Oops, dropped the a few little reeds there. I can place the pile of reeds. Same here. And a little bit of that deep dark blue, I think. That was working quite well before. I'll just pull that down and up. Add some little bits amongst there, just to give it a little bit of shadows in amongst it as well. I've really neglected this area here because there's not much going to go on in it. So I didn't want to put too much detail in there. So I'm just reinforcing the darks there, the same here, reinforce the darks, especially behind those lovely lights. Get those darks going. The dark there. And then I'll just put in a little bit of variation amongst those darks. So what I'll be doing is using some warm darks in there as well. Down here, I'll use quite a bit of warm dark because it's all warm coming out of the reed there. It's a good way to sort of add a bit of depth to your painting. So I'm letting the side, even though it's round, I can still use the side to make some of these marks. I'll do a little bit of overlapping there and I'll add in a few light ones as well. So that's some dark set in there. Then I want to actually add quite a light one in over the top of just where the light's catching, but not going too far down there. As it goes down here, they need to transition into this more yellower and not be quite so light. just want a few going over there. If I have too many coming out here, it'll pull me back out of the picture again. So again here, I'm just going to add in a few. Try not to go too overboard. Less is more. A little bit of overlap there is always good. You want to be able to see them against the other foliage back there, but you don't want them too prominent. A bit of a lighter pink colour as well. A bit more muted, so that's kind of good. You can add that in there. And I can use a bit of that in the sort of base of here as well, of the reeds. Always nice to have a little bit of variation. Here, I've got some reeds coming out, and they're more muted, so I'm just going to pull them out with a little suggestion. For there, with a little suggestion. A few little ones up here. And I want to go lighter now that I'm up there. So I'm going to give a little bit of the hint of real light coming across there and on some of those. So I get a sense of light. I think that might be a little bit cool. We'll think about that. I could play down those shadows slightly back there by cooling them a little bit down from how dark they are. That's not really helping. Sometimes you just need to pick up a bit of pastel and play with it. So adding a little bit of blues into the mix there. There's sort of cool shadows. If I don't like this, I'll go back and kind of felt maybe I'd made the shadows a little bit too dark there. And I'm going to add a little bit of those bluey shadows in down here as well. They actually work quite well over that yellow because they give you a nice green, a little bit of the blue. Not so keen on it there. Isn't that the beauty of pastels though? I can go back in there and just work that in again. Bringing a little bit of it down to the water. And it's just giving me a little some cooler. There's a little bit more in the shadow here, so some cooler spiky bits there. I'll add a little bit. I really don't want to do much more to it now. I think it's got quite a nice kind of energy going on there, so I don't want to do too much to it. I'll just maybe soften those off a little bit, those shadowy bits. I might add in a little hint of a bird back there because this is one of my favourite walks, and it's a favourite walk because it's always birds. So I'm thinking about whether I'll put in some birds or not, and right now I'm just adding in some more bits of blurriness there, reflection. I haven't done the tree trunks, have I? I really need to settle those in. I'm going to just take a grey, sort of mid-tone grey, and get those in. And I don't really need to do much more than that. I'll just edge up the inner edge with a little bit darker because it's furthest from the sun. But it's only a tiny bit because it's not, the sun's not really in there at this stage. I'm still worried whether my shadows are too dark back there. But I think this is where you need to just leave it and come back to it later on and see what you think. When I add in some birds, what I could do is just add in the touch. There's always some little seagulls on the water around here. There's always a whole lot of seagulls just circling around over there. So I might give them a few little seagulls just. I just love these reed beds over here. They make their nest there. Put something a little bit darker underneath some of those wings. So the suggestion of the birds there, this could be slightly better. I'm not really sure what to do. Maybe a couple of the cooler yellow, brighter, cooler, lighter, cooler yellow there in amongst might help it. Just wanted to. Let's do those last few little bits of dabs of colour. And really, I should not do too much. That one needs green. Take a little bit of green around there, a little bit of green up here. And a few little dots and dashes down here. And then the one thing I want to do is to put a little bit of just put in some. I know I'm getting carried away. I just wanted to add a little bit more colour in there because I really enjoyed the colour. I want to add a little bit of shadow coming across here from some of these reds. So I think what I'm going to do is just take something quite dark. I think maybe this deeper purpley colour and just put in a few little shadows across the pathway there. I don't want to leave it too much out. I could also put in a little. I might break the. I might break the seagulls up into the sky here. A couple of seagulls up into the sky here. Not forgetting to give them a little bit of. Not forgetting to give them a little bit of the dark on the wingtips. Dark on their wingtips. And they could have a little touch of a bright white. And they could have a little touch of a bright white on them. Until now. Which I've avoided until now. There we have it. So there we have it. I've tried to keep it loose, but I know it's not as loose as it should be. I think this is much looser. I used a palette knife with this, so I didn't have a lot of control over the reeds, and I think it's turned out better. Here, I got a bit too busy towards the end. However, has it achieved what I wanted, that sense of light and shadow back here? Yes, it has. Perhaps I've gone a bit too, got a bit too carried away here. And really, I think if I were being realistic, what I should go back and do is knock back some of the areas where I've put a lot of light in. Just knock them back a little bit more. And I think that would help the whole composition. Make all that area a little bit darker. And I can run a little bit of light across the water there. I think that has helped the composition by not having it quite so buffy in there. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed watching along as I painted this marshland theme, and that you join me next time. I'm really busy at the moment with a number of exhibitions coming up, and I've got a big one, solo exhibition, coming up in February. So I may not get them done every second week. I'll try my best. This one probably won't come out tomorrow as it should, because I have to go out to an opening tonight, and then I won't have time to edit it. However, I'll try and get it up to you as soon as I can. If you enjoy these and you want to be know when the next one's coming out, just hit the notification button, and if you subscribe and hit the notify button, then you'll get an email when I've got a new video out, and you won't have to keep looking for them. Thanks for joining me in the studio. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.